Hey guys, Dayton Zahner here with another episode of Bonsai Apprentice, and today we're going to be showing you guys how I use lime sulfur to clean the dead wood, and we're going to gin out one of the other pieces, so I'll show you guys that too. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you've been here before, just go ahead and hit that like and share button, I guess. But without further ado, let's get to it. So before we get too far, I just want to show you guys what I use. This is the gin seal that I use. I got it off Amazon. It's fairly cheap. But really any gin seal will work. Any lime sulfur will work. So just keep that in mind. I've already pre-mixed it with some rainwater we have. And got that ratio in there. We got it good to go. And today we'll be applying it to my Chinese juniper. You will have seen this in another video and multiple other videos actually. We will be applying it to one more tree, which is my Alberta blue spruce, and that long gin that runs through the middle. But before we do that, we're gonna work on this little piece here. So we're gonna work on refining this, taking off this bark that, we've killed off this branch. So we wanna bring it back to here and finish this gin out, which we didn't do when it was being wired, and show you the difference of before and after. So if you can tell, this one kind of has some darkening to it. It's got some kind of almost like some black on it. You can kind of see it around there, and it's hard with the shadow of the branch, but when I move it into the sunlight, you can just see how it's a darker color all through here. And then this one up here though is pretty white all the way through. So the goal is with the lime sulfur to get it this nice white, and it's important to use it a couple times a year to just preserve your dead wood, make sure that it's staying alive and that it looks good. So without further ado, before we do that, I'm so sorry. We're also going to gin this little piece, which I talked about earlier. So we're going to gin this and get it also white and nice. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, so to gin this piece, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my branch cutters, and we're going to go, and we're just going to cut around in a circle here. And we're gonna just make sure that we've cut so we're not peeling too far back on this, because I don't want it to go too far back. And then we're just gonna take my gin pliers. You're just gonna crimp off the bark. It'll come off really easy. You'll tear it, pull it off, boom, just like that. It comes right off. The good news is, like I said, if you cut it all the way through like you should, is once you get it, it peels off really easily. You're not afraid of going too far back. Some of this really older stuff up here that's got bark though, it's gonna take you a second to maybe get off because it's dead and not quite, it's more old and stuck on there. So getting it off is just a matter of gripping and pulling and making sure you get all of the fiber from all the different layers of bark off. Give it a good, scrape. Now, what you can do too is fire mark it. These are old, and I don't think they need it. That does preserve it long term, but I don't know how long I'm going to have this tree. I don't know how well it's going to progress into the future as an amateur myself. So I'm not too worried about that as a whole and having to blowtorch and worry about it. So that is something though I've seen professionals do. It's something that I recommend people who want to preserve their dead wood even more long term do than just lime sulfuring it, which is what I'm doing today. So again, I ringed it with my branch cutters, any concave cutters or work. Eventually this gin will lead into being wrapped around this branch and connect with this 10 gene here. But for now, I'm not doing that. I want this branch to stay really healthy and get a little bit thicker, and then I will eventually get it to do what I wanted it to there. So it's not a huge deal right now. It's just, looking long term, I know that for a fact that this piece is going to get taken to the next level on this tree, and that's okay. So trying to get all this bark off sometimes can be a hassle, but you just gotta give it your best go. And I wish I had more carving tools, but honestly they're expensive and I haven't gotten to it yet. So gotta pay off other things, and trying to get to Japan. So the last of my worries is trying to buy a really nice carving set, but we're gonna try and get it as good as possible here. So at the end of the day, like I said, if this tree doesn't end up perfect at the end of the day, that's okay too. I'm trying to get it as good as possible. So breaking off some of that bark is just a matter of getting in there with my gin pliers and just giving it, a real nice crimp. So trying to even rip some of it off isn't too easy. You might experience this with your own trees. Like I said, just take your time, have patience. You get a few tool marks on there, it's fine. As it weathers, as it changes, you'll get rid of those to a degree. So, like I said, if you have some carving tools, it makes life a little bit easier, but I unfortunately don't have that luxury at the moment, and you might not either. So this is a decent time to show you what to do. So that's pretty decent. I'm going to grab this camera real fast, bring it in. So you see it. Let's see. Can you see it? Yeah, there. It's not quite as pretty, but we'll see what we can do with the sulfur. So now when we sulfur it, ooh, I did forget that. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, guys. I thought I was prepared, but turns out I wasn't. So when you apply lime sulfur, you want the branch that you're applying it to, the gin, to be a little damp. So I grabbed some rainwater, I got my brush, and you can spray it on, but I couldn't find a spray bottle, so I'm just using this, and I'm just painting it on, making sure I get it nice and wet, get it soaked in there, so that the lime sulfur can adhere to the branch. And you don't want it like sopping wet. You just want it wet enough to stick to the tree. So you see the color change on the tree. And when it gets wet, obviously, if when you water your trees, you notice it. It changes from that white color to a more brownish color, I guess. It's not a huge difference, but you can just know when it's wet and what it looks like. So the other thing to be careful about when lime sulfuring is watch your foliage. It's acidic. It'll hurt your foliage a little bit if it gets on there. So what we're gonna do is just paint this up, make sure it looks good and wet, and we'll go from there. So it's all just part of the process of applying lime sulfur to your trees. So it's something you gotta do. I've heard recommendations of twice a year, 4 times a year. I think it really just would depend on your climate, and it's hot out here today, so the water's drying a little bit quicker. So if you got to go back and hit, don't be too afraid to do so, because if it dries out, you just got to hit it with water before you lime sulfur it again. So with that said, let's go ahead and put some lime sulfur on. I got my sulfur, brush in there, and you just start at the top and work your way down. Make sure, try not to get it on any foliage, and try to get as evenly coated and everywhere as good as possible. And what we'll see is this nice white coming through once it starts to dry. So you just want it nice and even. If it drips into the soil, try not to, but you know, things happen, and it's a little acidic, which is why you just don't obviously want it dumped in your soil. It'll hurt your tree, but a little bit won't hurt. You know, if you're using like a wood preservator or something to really take it on, which obviously this tree doesn't need that. The dead wood's good, but if you were to do such a thing, you would really want to protect your soil and your foliage. So just, you know, make sure it's moved out of the way. Don't paint it on there. You gotta move that branch. Make sure you get it from all angles and all sides, so you're getting all of the tree. And it's starting to dry out a little bit on some of this, so I'm gonna hit it with some water. All right, come back in, boom, boom. It's looking good, guys. So I do this on this tree especially because I like it the most out of my entire collection. I'm not gonna lie to you. I do it on this tree pretty regularly, once every 4 months, especially because I like this 10 gene. I think it's the focal point of this tree, and so I really want to keep it preserved and healthy. So I'm just gonna keep working. I'm gonna rinse this out, and then I'm gonna do this other branch, and then we'll take a focus and look on the last branch that I made over here. We'll go real close in depth with it and make it look really good. So same thing, watch this new foliage. I don't get it on there. Paint it on all sides, nice and even. Get in there, boom. So obviously this one won't look as white as this one because this one has some bark and stuff on it still that I, you know, can't get off without tools. And this one's is very clean and very refined. So once it dries though, it'll be a nice yellow color, a nice white color, nice pristine white. And we'll just keep making sure going through, boom. I think that's good for both of those. I think I got all the sides that needed to be. I'm gonna hit this side, make sure I got it really good on this bark. So miss all that. I don't know if I got. Make sure, just, you know, it doesn't hurt to go back over. All right. So. All right, guys. So we're gonna zoom in. So there's the lime sulfur mix. There's my brush and just some rainwater, some water on the brush now. Whoop, there we are. And we're just gonna paint this wet. Get it wet. Get it damp. You can see this will be a clear, so you can see where it's wet. Whoop, whoop, there we go. I'm so sorry about that. You can see where it's wet, where it's dry but not lime sulfured, and then where we just took off looks brand new. So we're gonna keep painting it up with water. Just keep it going, make it look good, nice and wet, so it absorbs that lime sulfur. Now, this is gonna be tricky because, like I said earlier, you don't want to get it onto your foliage, but gin is hanging right over. So we're going to be very careful. Make sure we give it a little dab so it's not dripping wet. And I'm going to actually start on the ends because I want to work my way up and bring any drops that could fall off with me up. So anything that could drop off, I want to pull it up. And make sure you're also getting all the sides. It's important that you get everywhere. And there's not really, I mean, you know, it's not a huge science to this. It's just making sure that you're getting where you need to be. And sorry if this film work's not as good. I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing. I haven't mastered this yet. I'm sorry. So you can see the difference in the yellow that I just threw on to this new part back here, which I will do now. And you can kind of see it gets a yellowish tint. And that tint, my friends, is exactly what we're looking for. And as it comes out, hopefully, once this dries, this branch will be a nice bright white. If we did it correctly, that should be the case. The other thing, just make sure you're reading your ratios on your lime sulfur. Make sure you're mixing it right. And, you know, you're doing it right. Because if you're not, then it doesn't really matter. All this work you did is just not going to help. So, we'll give that a second to dry. We will look at this gin here. And you can see already how white it's gotten. Just from applying that, you can just see how stark all of a sudden it looks. And you can see over here how this one's still brown. And that's just because I think with the wood, you know, like I said, it's not actually getting all the way and penetrating all the way into the hardwood per se. And that's, I guess, again, it's just because I don't have the tools to be able to really get in there and pull out some of that stuff. So unfortunately, this one just might have to wait. You're just gonna have to see what it does. But that gin is just gonna be that color, and you can just see the stark white versus that darker brown. So we'll take a look back over here, and you can see that even this one is starting to turn more white. I might give it just another coat and really make sure, because I like this gin. I want to keep it long term. Start at the ends, start working my way back. And this is one of the best ways to preserve your deadwood and make sure it lasts long term. So we're just going to keep it painting, keep painting, keep painting. And then just make sure, like I said, you're just trying not to drop it on any foliage. Obviously, a little is okay, but you don't want to douse it. Just make sure and just keep it. Yeah, like I said, I just want it to look really, really good. So I want this eventually I want to gin quite a few branches across this tree once I get to a point where I can do that. But for now, it's just the main one, and then kind of sitting, you know, there with the cascade and whatnot. So, like I said, eventually I would like to bring this down once it gets more length, fill it in, and that'll be a style for this tree. Again, it's already getting bushy. It's put on so much growth. It's so healthy this year. I'm so happy because I repotted it, and it got a major root prune on this tree. But it's just thrown on so much growth. If you look, I mean, you got all these rocket shoots coming out. I mean, like, it's crazy, the stuff I'm getting on this tree. And all these new shoots are just exploding with growth. And they just look so dang good. So, you know, I got places that are just full of mass and branches that are, you know, brand new coming out. Like this one, I would watch my old video, and it was 2/3 this size when I did that video, and now it's just, I mean, it's just shooting off. You know, some of these shoots are just getting super woody. You know, it's super compact at the end and woody. I'm like, my goodness, it looks so good. And I'm lost for words on what's, like, this one especially right here. I remember when I wired this tree and I showed you guys the detail, this one was too small to even do. And now it's just, you know, it's just got this huge rocket leader, which I wanted to stay healthy and keep growing. So I'm leaving it, trying to get rid of some of this juvenile foliage back here eventually. But, you know, I'm just, my goodness, it exploded. So now that's dried a little bit, we'll come back and you can see that's whiter back here. And as we get out to the end, it's starting to turn that whiter color underneath. It's still wet. Oop, there we go. I'm so sorry. It's still a little wet, you can tell. But you can already tell it's going to be lighter. You can already tell that it's going to phase out and it's going to look really, really good. So with that said, let's change out trees and we will come back in a second. All right, guys. So here is the last one we're doing today. And this is my Alberta Blue Spruce. And basically it's the same process. Although I don't have any gen on this tree today. Any gen work. It's just painting on this lime sulfur and going to it. So we're going to make sure we get these gens wet, you know, damp. Like I said, they don't need to be soaked. They don't need to be super duper wet. It just needs to be damp enough that the lime sulfur is just not running off and getting everywhere on the trees. So I really like this gin. I think it's a fun gin. It gives the tree a lot of character. I hope long term some of this major scarring in here goes away from where it's expanded and grown over, and we get a nice contrast between that and the bark. But we'll see. Time will tell. It was pretty abrasive what happened to it, so I can't really blame it for doing what it did. So it's sufficiently wet, and now I think it's time we put on some sulfur. And really, you can do this, you know, thick. You can do it thin. It just depends on how white you want it and how much preservative you actually want on the tree. Like I said, this is kind of an important gin. All of my gins are kind of important gins for the trees. You know, I don't really want to lose any of them or, you know, have anything happen to them. So I try and I wouldn't say I throw it on heavy, but I take precautions and make sure long term that I'm taking care of them, because I like how they look, and they're integral pieces to how the tree reacts and looks long term. So like I said, I put on a little bit. If it rolls down just a tad, it's okay. I just try not to get it on the tree. So we'll wait a second. We'll see what happens to it once it starts to dry. If it looks like it needs another coat, we'll give it to it. But yeah, like right in here is another spot too. I'm sorry. I'm just going to point it out that I wish would get some bark and start looking good. But, you know, overall, I think it's getting there. I wish I could have left the wires on just a little bit longer, but I think it just needs to heal more before I do that. I think it needs some more recovery time before I go and throw more wire on it. It's just not the best. But I've got a lot of new buds. If you look in on every branch, lots of new buds coming out on every branch all across the tree. So it's you know, it's healthy. It's looking good. It's healthy. And you know, that you got a ton there. So I'm hopeful for this tree. I don't think it's gonna die. I don't think it's going anywhere. The roots are really good on this tree. They're not quite coming out the bottom, but you know, you can see a couple roots in there. So I don't know if you could see that on camera. I can see it, but there we go. I think we have it though, folks. I think that's gonna whiten up really clear. I'll post a picture on Instagram of these once they dry. So if you want to follow me there. The link's in the description of this video. And let's get to this outro. Hey guys, thanks again for watching. It's the outro. It's hot out here, man. It's Missouri summers. But I really appreciate it. Thanks. Make sure you give a like, share, and subscribe if you like this content. I got another video coming out this week where we're working on another Chinese juniper. I'm going to show you my entire process for cleaning out a tree, for wiring the tree, for finding the nabari and working with the angle. Obviously, I won't be repotting it because it's going to be too hot, but you know, you'll see this process again on that tree if I make any gens or a shari on that tree, which it's high likely I will, because you know, it's a juniper. So we'll really just keep you updated, and I hope you like this video. Please give a like, share, and subscribe like I said earlier. If you want to help me get to Japan when I can go, pending COVID, stuff like that, please go to my GoFundMe, donate, and I don't know, I got nothing else. So on that note, sayonara.